Welcome everyone to a new tutorial. This is the second in the tutorials based on the colors of the Hawaiian Islands. And today we'll be doing one based on the big island of Hawaii, and its official color is red. And this comes from the red lihue blossom, which is one of the first plants to grow after a new lava flow. These come right up out of the black lava, and so there's a wonderful contrast between the red and yellow with the black lava. I also wanted to add a couple dot elements from the petroglyphs that are carved into the older lava beds, as well as the yellow spathe from the red anthurium flower. I'm using a 3.7-inch mold from the Happy Dotting Company to make an art stone, and I let it cure for 2 days and I painted it black, and I'm using a General's charcoal white pencil to do my guidelines. I cut out a 7-segment circle that I printed out on the internet, and I'm just going to do a little bit of a hole here in the middle, place it over the center dot that is in the mold. It's molded right into the stone for you, so it's easy to find. And I'm going to mark that with my pencil, and then connect those lines with a measuring tape, just drawing from the dot to the center all the way around until I have a 7-segment circle. And this will be the basis of the mandala. Now I've mixed up some paints, and I'm going to list these in the comments. I did a craft paint and an iridescent for the purple, and then I mixed 2 paints, including a golden fluid, with a craft paint to get some of the other colors. I usually add the golden fluid just to boost the pigment saturation of my craft paints. I'm using tools from Mark's Mandalas today, and they are numbered, so you can follow along if you have them. First, I'm doing a large red dot in the center and then doing 7 orange dots around that for our first row. And then offsetting medium-sized orange dots right in between those guidelines. Leaving just a little bit of space for some smaller dots a little bit later. Now I'm putting a large fuchsia dot right on the guideline. And then adding a medium yellow dot to take up the space. Next will be an extra large red dot. This will be the basis of our lihue blossom. Trying to get those right in between those guidelines, get them centered. You can see one of them's a little bit off, but I'm going to correct that later when I walk dots. Now I'm filling in some of that space with small red dots, and then filling in the space between the orange row with this beautiful fuchsia. Now I'm not actually walking these. These are same size dots. When I say walking the dots, I mean that you're dipping it once and then walking the dots up, and they get smaller and smaller as you go. But this time I'm dipping and I'm just doing 1 or 2 dots because I want them to be the same size. And this for me is much harder than walking the dots, because getting the spacing even and making sure your dots are the same size is really pretty difficult. So I'm showing you how long it takes me. Even after 3 years of dotting practice, I still have to be this careful when I am doing same size small dots around a larger dot. And it's especially hard on the left side because it's kind of a blind spot over there. So I'm a little bit of guesswork to try and get them the same spacing. I found that I could do 19 dots all the way around these large red dots, and I tried to do the same number on each one. Takes a little practice, but it's worth it. The effect is very symmetrical and very neat. So now I'm doing a medium dot, just centering that on that red petal there, looking across and making sure I'm getting in between those guidelines. And then I'm going to put 2 smaller red dots on either side of that. We're just creating the basis for another row of this petal that we are forming. And then I'm going to walk up 2 of the fuchsia dots, changing colors to give kind of a gradient effect on this row. So now that we've walked up 2 of the fuchsia dots, we're switching to a smaller tool and we're going to finish walking up that row in the purple. Now I'm getting to the edge of my stone, so I'm going to lift it up on a little glass votive candle holder with a piece of damp paper towel put on top to keep it from slipping. And that's just going to raise it up a little higher so it's easier to get to the sides of the stone. And I'm repeating the same thing here. I'm doing a large red dot centered on the edge of the petal, and then putting 2 smaller dots on either side of that, also in red. These tools are slightly bigger than that first row we did. And then walking up 2 fuchsia dots, and then finishing it out by walking up with the purple. That gives us a double row. Now that that's done, I let it dry, and I'm adding some yellow now in between the petals. First a small dot. Oh, excuse me, this is the orange. It looks yellow on my monitor. And then going up a couple sizes, putting an orange dot in the center, and then doing a little bit larger size in between the petals. Now I'm mixing up a lighter shade of the fuchsia just by adding a little bit of white, just holding it up to make sure it's the right tone, and doing some top dots right on top of those darker fuchsia dots. And then I'm adding some of the golden fluid vat orange right out of the bottle. It's a very liquidy paint, but it makes great top dots. They dry very glossy and very vibrant. So I put it on the second orange row and then on the yellow row. Now I'm putting a medium orange dot as a top dot on the large red petals. I added a little bit of orange to my yellow paint just to get this sort of in-between yellow-orange color, and I'm going to use that to do the swooshes on the side that stand for the strath from the anthurium flower. But first I'm going to show you just how you can practice on your base paper. All you do is make a dot and then drag it. And I'm dragging it with a little bit of curve to the tail because I'm going to be curving around that petal, kind of hugging the petal with these yellow-orange swooshes. So I'm double loading the dot and then dragging it. And do it on both sides of the petal, starting right where the largest red dot begins and swishing that right up the side of the petal. And do that all the way around on both sides of each of the 7 petals. And I'll kind of tilt the rock so you can see what that looks like. Now I'm placing some red top dots on the largest orange dot at the outside edge. And then adding a yellow-orange triple dot to the main red petal to make it glow like lava. And then adding a purple dot to the smaller orange dot in between the petals. And then mixing up an even lighter shade of that fuchsia to make a triple dot on the fuchsia row. I decided to add a few yellow top dots on the first row. And now I'm going to mix up some black paint with the Liquitex Iridescent medium. And I'll be using this for black top dots that will remind me of some of the dots that you'll see in the petroglyphs in the national lava beds on the Big Island of Hawaii. There's about 20,000 petroglyphs carved into the ancient lava beds, and they have a lot of dots on them. So after I've put a dot on each of the swishes, now I'm putting one on the largest red dot at the outside of the petal. I'll lift it up so you can see. And we are done with the design. I'm going to turn it so you can see that outer edge. A little bit of the Polynesian tiki look to the outside of that. I'll let this dry completely, and then you're going to take off the guidelines with water. I like to use a wet Q-tip to get my guidelines off. Make sure your paint is nice and dry so you can really scrub and get those off. And then you can finish your stone with a clear acrylic spray or some resin. And if you're going to do a smaller stone, all you do is use smaller tools, and then you can skip a row on the petal. Instead of doing a triple row, you can just do a double row. Thanks for watching, everyone. Stay tuned for our next island, Oahu.